Hello, I'm Chris Lusvardi. I'm editor of Seed Today, which is based here in Decatur, Illinois. I've been editor of Seed Today for the past 5 years, and I've enjoyed my time learning about the seed industry and meeting with people both here in the United States and around the world while working for Seed Today, which, for those of you who don't know, is a quarterly seed publication or trade publication now in its 25th year, which provides the latest information and stories about the seed industry. Our third quarter edition will be published in August, which is our next one, but we also have samples of our past 3 editions in ISF's Resource Center, and full editions can also be found online on our website, which is www.seedtoday.com, where you can also find daily news updates on a variety of topics impacting the seed industry, both nationally and internationally. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and subscribe to both the magazine and our online e-newsletter, which is sent out by email twice a month. I'm very excited to be here today with ISF Regulatory Affairs Manager Zabi Ruthner, who I'll have introduce himself and explain a little bit about his role with ISF.
Hey, well, thank you very much, Chris, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today about some issues which is under my scope here in ISF. So I'm Zabi Ruthner, and I'm working at ISF since 2015. I'm a regulatory affairs manager, dealing with various regulatory aspects around the seed industry, but mostly focusing in a couple of last years policies around plant breeding innovation. Probably it's more likely, as you know, the word genome editing. So it's anything related to policy, regulatory areas, and gene editing is at my table here at ISF.
Great, that sounds very interesting. So it's great to be here talking with you today, and we'd like to talk about a very important topic, which is gene editing. But before we get too far into the debate and what's going on as far as the gene editing policy, could you please explain what we mean by gene editing? What exactly is it?
Yeah, I try to explain it by, I guess many of the viewers are somewhat familiar with this subject, because this is nowadays is all over the place. So you can hear all of the medias and other channels. So how we usually explain and what the plant breeders and how the plant breeders edit the plant's DNA is basically similar to editing a text on a word processor. So when your sequenced DNA are like the sentences, words that can be deleted, replaced, or added, and the results in a change in meaning. So it's very similar to that. The newest methods not even require cutting the DNA, just chemically edit the base pairs, which called prime or base editing. So this is, I think, the easiest way to describe to really something similar to a word processor on a computer. What is also an important aspect that this current application, which right now breeders are working, they're mostly working on the gene pool, on the own gene pool of the plant without introducing foreign genes. And I think this will be important when we are speaking about the regulatory aspects in a later stage. Maybe also important that why breeders are doing it. So what is the motivation behind that breeders do genome editing? Is very simple. Since breeding has started basically centuries ago, the aim was to increase the genetic variability of the cross, and which is the major source of plant breeding. So basically what plant breeders do with genome editing, this is an additional tool to induce more genetic variations through the breeding process. Also, there is a frequently asked question that we have this genome editing, so this will make earlier methods obsolete or not. And the clear answer is no. Genome editing, or we can call it targeted mutagenesis, is part of the breeding cycle. So traditional breeding methods like crossing and selection will be part of the work of the breeders in the future as well. This only makes some of the application more efficient than was in the past.
What are the main benefits of gene editing?
One of the main benefits is the precision. So it's we know much more about the genome today. So this is right now enables us to make changes in a much more targeted way than we did in the past. It also because of the efficiency, it's saving time, inducing less unintended changes in the DNA, like compared to previous methods like random mutation, when it was really all over the place when breeders use it, and it was difficult to predict the change. But also we need to know that this is pretty much the beginning of the story. So we already see many possibilities to improve plants and their characteristics, and those type of characteristics which were difficult to breed or improve with earlier methods. So I'm thinking about polyploid plants, when you have like many chromosomes and you have to alter in the same time. Obviously, with crossing and selection, it was much more difficult. Or different characteristics which are controlled by many genes. So most of the disease resistance characteristics, for instance, are controlled by gene families, and which was very difficult to improve with earlier methods. So with genome editing, this could be really an advantage. And also, this is a relatively inexpensive method. So of course, it requires laboratory background and certain type of knowledge, but it gives access to not just for a few bigger companies, but to public institutes and small and medium-sized enterprises as well.
Yeah, so who are some of the developers behind the products obtained by genome editing?
Yeah, it's interestingly, there's only two products at the market at the moment which are fully commercialized. So one well-known example is the high oleic soybean from Calyx, which is marketed in the US, and there was just recently high GABA tomato in Japan. But on the other hand, we see, of course, a lot of research and publication. And also in some of the countries, there are some public consultations started in certain products. And it's really depict a really diverse picture in terms of the size and geography of the stakeholders. So public institutes, small, medium-sized companies, and also specialized startups are basically flourishing, and they're starting their research and product development. So and also what is important, we see many public-private partnership when universities, public institutes are teaming up with the public sector. So it's a really diverse and good type of cooperation at the moment. And it's partly what I said, due to the relatively low level of entry in terms of financial meaning. So we often hear this criticism that is just for the big and multinational companies, but what we are seeing is absolutely the contrary.
Yes, it sounds like it. So what is the ISF's position as to the policies around genome editing?
Yeah, it's one of our key strategic objective, of course. It's important for the seed industry, important of the breeding sector. So we very early on had a specialized working group who are dealing with this issue. It was established right now 6 years ago.
Okay.
And right in the beginning, we said our baseline, our principle that we would like to convey to policies and regulators, that they should look at the product and not the technology behind. So if a gene-edited product could have been achieved by other traditional breeding methods or via natural processes, they should be regulated the same way. So based on these principles, regulators can relatively easily determine if a gene-edited product should fall under the respective GMO or biotech regulation or not. So I think it was early on agreed, and I think we managed to somehow get traction, and some of the governments are took this kind of thinking, and I will speak a little bit later about concrete examples from countries how it has been done. The other important elements which also somehow underline the importance of this type of product-based approach, that this is a rapidly evolving technology, as we know. So new publications are coming out pretty frequently. So the only way to keep up with these challenges from the regulatory perspective is to look at the outcome rather than the process, because if you are looking at the process, we are already late, because next day or next year or next month there will be new technologies available. So I think this is very important. And
so how soon do you think that we could see some of these policies approved and implemented?
Yeah, I think it's already the discussion in different policies in countries started 5 years ago. So there are some countries that already have adopted policies, while others are in the phase of reviewing their regulatory framework. Also, there are countries who are in these 5-6 years, they are rethinking again, because they felt that it's not really future-proof what they have at the moment. So if we see this kind of a map, it's really varies. I think what was important for us as ISF, how to approach these discussions, that there is no international organization who would oversee this policy development. So for instance, for plant variety protection, we have UPOV. For seed testing, we have VISTA. So for genome editing or plant breeding innovation, obviously we don't have. So our role, and since the beginning, and I think we did it quite successfully, to try government to speak and agree on certain principles, and this kind of discussion needs to maintain in the future as well.
Right. I know it's been an issue specifically in Europe and with the European Commission. I think it's currently studying the issue. What's happening there, and in terms of attempts to try to provide some regulations for gene editing?
Probably. Europe is absolutely very important, but probably I would start with more positive examples, if you may allow so, because
sure.
Because I think this is what we can build in the future. So as I said, right now it's a moving target, so not every country finalized fully their policies. So what positive example to be mentioned first is South America. So we are really seeing a great alignment of countries, and they have the same regulatory trigger. So it means that the generated product contains novel genetic combination or foreign gene sequence. They are considered GMOs, and if they are not, they are considered as any other conventional product. So it's a very pragmatic, value-bringing approach. These countries have case-by-case pre-consultation, so developers can approach them, and within 60, 90 days, they get an answer that they can commercialize their products as a conventional, or they have to go through on the regulatory approval of a GM products. And there are other good examples. Australia, they have upfront exemptions, so some of the small modifications are exempted without any need of consultation. We have Japan, there is a voluntary consultation. Also, certain products are treated as conventional. We have US and Canada, where again, it's not fully, the discussion hasn't been fully finished, but already certain products are exempted. So, and I could go on luckily with nice examples. So these are really positive. As regards the European Union, indeed, it's an important region. It's obviously has big impacts of the rest of the world, and unfortunately, in 2019. While they make a legal interpretation of their GMO legislation, this legal interpretation was concluded that all targeted mutagenesis, so meaning genome editing, will be considered as GMOs, which was obviously a huge shock for the research community, for private companies. But what is important to know here that this GMO regulation is already 20 years old, and it's based on the knowledge of the late 90s or the mid 90s. So to be honest, this is the interpretation that could have been achieved with this old regulation. And I think because of this outroar of the scientific community, not just public and private, I think the Commission started thinking, okay, this is really feasible, this is really enforceable, and they started, and what you talk about, Chris, they started a Commission study, which took a little bit more than a year to conclude. There were various stakeholders, consultation with private research, with public research, with the respective stakeholders like farmers and food processors and so forth. And they published this study in April with some very promising results for the future. So there is really hope in Europe to change that. So basically, what the conclusion was that this recent GM legislation have clear implementation challenges, and there are legal uncertainties as regards these new methods. There's a strong indication that it's not fit for purpose. So this needs to be somehow modified and needs to adapt it to the scientific and technological progress. And also, it's recognized the importance of future innovation. So I think this was a very positive first step. But as we know, in the European Union, things don't happen overnight. So it's gonna be a longer, many years procedure to go through with the all political levels, with the European Parliament and Council to get things moving. But I think there is this first positive element and is there. So hopefully we can build on it, and this current situation can be changed in the future.
So what as far as the impact on the rest of the world, what do you think once everything's resolved in Europe, what's going to be the impact for regulations? You mentioned so much happening in other places.
Yeah, I think it's depending on the outcome. At the moment, we are hopeful, but we don't know what we'll get in the end. I think there are two elements. I think it's very important. So Europe is one of the largest seed importer and exporter globally, and also a very significant player in the import of commodities and food and feed. So any regulatory uncertainty will pose a very big trade barrier of these products with all detectability issues, labeling. So it's if Europe will deviate from rest of the world, this will pose a really nightmare from the trade perspective. The regulatory implication is also interesting because some countries in Africa, for instance, or Asia, they are looking the European regulation because they think this is sound and safe and science-based. So they have some idealistic views, I guess, that something is coming from Europe. It needs to be followed. So there's a danger of, obviously, if there's the outcome would be negative from Europe, this can trickle down in other countries and impact their regulatory framework. So there are a lot at stake, not just because of Europe itself, but it has a great impact on the rest of the world as well.
Sure sounds like it. So what could be some of the consequences of disproportionate and inconsistent regulations?
Yeah, I think we have this nice example of GMO regulation. So we know what was the result of patchwork of regulation and asynchronous decision as regards the GM product. So if it's repeated, I think the negative consequences could be the same, that only the largest companies will have the financial capacity to manage the cost related to the regulation, because we know, for instance, GMs, which is already an expensive technology, but sometimes the regulatory costs are higher than the development cost. So this can happen to genome editing as well if there be incoherent legislation. And also, what we see today, there is really many crops. Breeders and researchers are growing a very wide range of crops. So it's not just soybean, maize, and cotton. So, but if again, and this will be a higher entry because of the regulatory cost, this could be limited for the highest benefit crops, which we would like to avoid for sure. And also, what we see, the great interest today with the academic community, domestic agriculture research organization, international agriculture research organization. So there's a great deal of public research which could be also hindered or restricted with a high regulatory burden. And then this has a trigger effect to all type of research cooperation, germplasm exchange, and so forth. In the end, it will be difficult to increase productivity in a sustainable way, which will become more and more challenging. So again, I think we have some negative experience from the past, and obviously we don't want to repeat this with the genome editing. Yeah.
What can be some of the benefits to providing farmers with choices and access to quality seeds?
It may sound as a kind of common sense, but we are living in an age with many global challenges like climate change, increasing population, and so forth. So I think we cannot afford to lose access to any of the breeding methods. So as the industry, the only way to provide high quality seed if we have access to those methods and technologies. And we don't think that any type of production methods would be superior compared to another, but I believe, and we believe that we have a place for conventional biotech, genome editing, whatever type of product. So I think what is important to have locally adapted varieties available for farmers, and they need to choose what is their preference. So not the regulators choose instead of the farmers. I think the bottom line is here that we have to provide a wide variety of choices of different varieties developed through different type of techniques. But if it's safe, if it's tested, this needs to be available for the farmers.
Any other top priority issues the ISF is focused on right now?
I think one of the priority, and you didn't ask, so probably I insert here, still related to plant breeding innovation is the communication. So we as a seed industry, have a really clear role to explain why we are doing this, what we are doing, and how we are doing it to the general public. So we are in the past, but also already in the future, we try to have some communication materials, infographics, small visuals, short description that we try to explain the I would say the real story, the fact-based story about genome editing and why it's important, not just for the breeders, not just for the farming communities, but also for the entire society. I think it's a very important thing, and we are working on it. The other thing is we are in heavy preparation for the UN Food System Summit, and this will be the biggest, I would say, agricultural event of the year, and we are part of the discussion, and we have the chance to show how the seed sector can contribute to a more resilient and sustainable food system. And at last and not least, one of our key priorities is the free movement of seeds. And obviously, we have a lot of regulatory hurdle, especially in the field of the phytosanitary regulations. So this is a kind of ongoing subject, but it's a really evergreen and very important subject, because this is what seed traders can face every day with market restriction, market access problems. So this is something we are doing on an ongoing, continuous manner.
With so many of these important issues that you're involved with, how can people around the world make their voices heard and give you their input as to the various issues?
Yeah, as at ISF level, obviously we have various committees, sections, working groups who are working on these different procedures. So it's open for seed companies and the experts of the seed industry to join this kind of preparatory work, which then can be represented in the different international forum we have. But I think what is not more important, but equally important, that the implementation level is always national and regional level. So I think it's important to be involved in the global level, but it's equally important to have the same representativity at the national discussion and the country level discussion, that if a position agreed at ISF level, this needs to be implemented at the national level. And for that, we have National Seed Association, who are our members, and the activity and the company's activity in the national level is also very, very, very important.
That it definitely is. So, well, thank you for joining us and explaining the issues so well here today. Be sure to check out seedtoday.com for the latest information about these and other issues impacting the seed industry, along with checking out all the resources ISF provides on these and other important topics. We hope that those of you watching have found this session to be informative and that you're enjoying the ISF Virtual Congress. It's been a great way to bring us all together, and hopefully it can return to being in person again next year. For now, enjoy the rest of the week.